Well, hello and welcome to Rockets Pockets. At the sound of the Valkyries there, you know we're starting another episode. And today we're bringing in Dave Pepin to Rockets Pockets. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks so much for inviting me into your home.
Well, thanks for coming, man. I should first mention that this episode might talk about mental health issues or suicide. So if you want to avoid that, don't listen to the episode. It'll be spoke about frankly and respectfully, but if you have any issues with that, maybe skip this episode. Okay, so welcome, Dave. We're actually winging it here, people. We haven't talked about what the hell we're going to do. So, Dave, start winging it by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Maybe move the microphone a little closer to your face.
Yeah, there we go. So that's definitely winging it. Dave Pepin, 42 years old now. Retired from the CAF in 2017.
CAF being Canadian Armed Forces, yeah.
Yep. And so 14 years with them, 3 years with the artillery, forward observer, and then 11 years with the Canadian Special Operations Regiment, where predominantly I ended up as a JTAC and JTAC Instructor.
Okay, so you're throwing out a lot of acronyms there, Dave.
Yeah.
Let's back that up.
So
first of all, you started off in the military as an artillery guy?
Yeah, I did. So maybe just before that, like both my folks were military, born Quebec City, Francophone, moved across Canada.
So was your dad a Vandu?
No, he's not. He's actually in the Navy.
In the Navy?
Yeah, so he did 38 years in the Navy. And my mom was Army, but she did 30 years of Army. And when we were on the West Coast, she actually did a couple of years on one of the destroyers. So yeah, they moved around quite a bit and they got to see a lot.
Cool. Where were you born?
Quebec City. And then
La Belle Provence.
Yeah, first 6 years there, 2 years Halifax, 9 years in Ottawa, 2 years in Victoria. Lived in Ottawa one more year. Studied in college computer-assisted sound design in Montreal.
What is computer-assisted sound design?
It's like what we're doing right here. So you've got a soundboard there, and you'd capture sound for stuff like podcasts, but predominantly working in studio. Or
I've been doing all this without a degree.
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, so you were a gunner for 3 years, you said, and then you jumped to special operations?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a really interesting story because CSOR started in 2006.
Right.
And so we had gone down to Quantico, Virginia as a part of the NEO task force. So it's like the non-combatant evacuation. I forget what the O stands for, maybe organization.
Okay.
But essentially, I think it was General Caron at the time who said, hey, we're going to have this team augment JTF2, and we're going to take the NEO task force and we're going to make them the Special Operations Regiment. And so one day, my battery commander just said, hey, Dave, we're going to send you into this Special Forces unit. We need to supply 12 guys. And I was like, what do they do? And he couldn't answer me. So I said, sir, thank you, but no thanks. And at the time I was really like looking to get onto a Pathfinder course. Right, with the Foo Party. And so like that was my focus in life.
So you had no realization of what you were turning down?
Yeah, none. And so I literally did drill to my left to exit the room. And this other battery commander stands right in front of me. And he says to his counterpart, he says, I can't send my guy in. He's got a DUI pending. And so my battery commander looked at me and he's like, Gunner, whether you like it or not, you're going to this place. And then next thing you know, they needed UAV guys. So I was in Tel Aviv for a couple of weeks using a UAV for the first time, which is kind of like this double-edged sword because it served.
So you weren't special forces at this time yet. You were just taking specialty courses.
Yeah, they were grooming me already for that kind of stuff, right? And it's just fast and furious the way the first couple of serials went through.
Yeah.
So you learn that firsthand. And then in April of 2006, that's when I think we started kind of like selection within the course itself. And so it was a pretty crazy year.
Selection for?
CSOR.
Canadian Special Operations Regiment.
Yeah, that's right.
So they, what did they do for selecting within you were on a drone course?
Yeah, I was on a drone course, but that was just something that they needed. So I still had to do the operator side of things. So there was more psychological testing than anything else. The rest of it was just the basic PT test.
Like would you like a job flower arranging? What kind of pornography do you read? That kind of psych testing?
Yeah, if I made decisions based on like what the ghosts and spirits were telling me, yeah.
Right. Do you hear voices nobody else hears?
Yeah, that one's a no, by the way. I gotta say no.
Yeah, well, being medical myself, I knew which ones to answer no to.
Yeah.
Despite what the voices were arguing against. All right. So, what were you training to do with the drones? What were the drones?
It was technically a small UAV, and so Israel developed like this ergonomic control tablet, which is like a laptop with like a gross Xbox controller, and a small UAV launched by a bungee. Had a pretty good airtime, like an hour plus. There's a lot of things you could do with it. However, there was a lot of bugs within the software, and fortunately the hardware was really good. Except for landing. They would do a belly landing on a blown up balloon, if you will, like underneath it.
Controlled crash.
Yeah, it's controlled crash, and eventually your payload, so the sensor would be damaged. So like when it did its job, it was phenomenal. But
was it weaponized at all, or just strictly observation?
Strictly observation. Even got to the point where it had like an infrared pointer on it, which was great.
Yeah.
But at the time, Israel went through some border conflicts with Hezbollah and other agencies there or parties. And so then their focus was on that, right? So contractually with Canada, I think the system went to court just because they couldn't figure out the bugs of software that rendered it unreliable.
All right. So did you have all your specialty courses before taking selection then? So you were a SOTAC, or did that come later? Yeah,
SOTAC. So JTAC was later. So in 06, finished being an operator, and then you're in 1DA at the time, so one direct action company. And then you're just one of the numbers in the stack. So in 2007, saw my first deployment to Afghanistan, and pretty much like gunner, driver type position there. And then after 07, I really wanted to become a sniper. And
tell us, before I do the sniper, tell us about your first contact in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think it was the second or third day that I was there. I was just going for a jog. So you got like the 9mm on you, and you sign out, you go for your jog around the back 40. And then like at some point...
This was at Graceland, right?
Yeah, at Graceland. Yeah. So just immediately northwest of Kandahar City. And then that's when like an RPG just like went over my head somewhere, like could have been forward of me by a couple hundred meters or who knows. So that was kind of like my first taste a little bit. It was kind of strange just seeing people like just on the other side of the gate like that. But they're more comfortable and accustomed to how things are going. And it was really a quiet tour because some of the times that we were there, for me, like I didn't go out until maybe in the fifth month of my tour. It was really easy tour. There's nothing to complain about there. Canadians had decided that we needed to stop giving detainees to the Americans because of what was happening in the news. Yeah. So there was a month and a half where we were stood down. Like we couldn't go on hits because you'd either have to kill the guy so you don't bring him back as a detainee, but obviously you never know how that's going to go down. And then eventually my section became op red at the end of the tour. And hours after we became op red, the Americans were coming back from CAF at nighttime, and they got hit by a volley of like 25 RPGs.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it was like a convoy of 4 Hummers, and then they had like some jingle trucks in tow. And so we just showed up. Within 30 minutes, we showed up there, and kind of a shit show. I was never outside of really my Hummer, but my objective was, and this is a good story actually, get to the west side and just be kind of cordon on the west side of it looks really like a traffic incident like on the west side of Kandahar City. And so at the time I didn't have 50-50s. I had like the monocular, and so like to look left,
for the night vision
right.
Goggles.
Yeah, the night vision goggles, just like even more pronounced movements, looking left and right. So like showing up there, like open the door, talk to the boss, and he's like, Dave, I need you on the west flank, and point the 50 down there. And I had Sandy on the 50, and Mo was my 2IC sitting next to me, or not my 2IC, but the 2IC. And so
Rashad Mo.
Yeah. So So I was like, all right, I got my mission, you know, and this is my first time really ever outside the wire, like next to low vis convoy moves and stuff like that.
Right.
And so like there was no flex as a human being at that time, right? And so I drove over a burning Hummer with my Hummer. And like later on in the next day, Sandy was like, "Why didn't you just drive around him?" So like
Fair question.
But I totally don't remember that. Like my brain just blocked it out. Sandy told me about it.
Were you taking fire at this point?
No, there's nothing like that. When we got onto the scene, like everything had been like, you know, played down.
Right.
The attack was over. So we just did a quick reaction force show up. One of the soft guys on the U.S. side lost an eye. Everyone else was fine. And then one of the things that was kind of scary is the only guy who had night vision goggles was one of the cooks they were picking up at CAF. And so that obviously didn't help their situation.
Sounds like something out of Black Hawk Down.
Yeah. And then we had the LO in CAF tell us afterwards that the signal to do the attack came from one of the jingle trucks. So one of these trucks...
And a jingle truck, folks, is it's a heavy hauling truck, brightly painted and has chains and bells and stuff all around it to decorate it. And it jingles while it's driving, so we call it a jingle truck.
Yeah. And so it's this truck came up to like our position on the west side. They were really far behind the convoy, right?
Yeah.
But imagine being that jingle truck guy and you send the signal that the convoy is moving up, so you want to separate from the hostile act. Yeah. So it was just kind of like interesting. Who was it? I forget his name again. But anyways, he told us, the driver was the guy who like told the ambushed Taliban fighters about here they come. So, and then as daybreak came up, you could see they had like aiming posts on the divider on the highway. So it's like they had their, you know.
So they knew when you were entering the kill zone.
Yeah, exactly. Like pretty cool. But after the fact, learning how all that stuff unraveled, it's makes you think about, you know, where you are and how business is done there. It's it kind of not set me back, but just kind of like gave me a greater view on reality, I think, a little bit.
And what was your opinion before you've actually met any Taliban resistance to after you made contact with Taliban? Did you have an opinion one way or the other of what they were like?
I don't think so. Like in 2011, it was a much more mature operator at that time. Yeah. So you could almost see when people are up to no good or not, you know. It's like really catching children with a hand in the cookie jar. Yeah. So that was always kind of interesting to me. But I think the training that we received really prepared me for thinking through things really smoothly. I was always wondering, you know, what's it going to be like the first time you have to shoot or see someone that's dead. And in 2009 is the first time, I think, that I saw a dead dude on the X. Yeah. And
your first tour was when?
2007.
Okay.
Right. So 2009 was my second. And I was really concerned more about how his leg became like 90 degrees than the fact that he was dead. I was just like, it just made sense to me. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't stay up at night because of that kind of stuff. And I think that's just because we do so much training.
And is there stuff you stay awake that keeps you awake for now?
No, definitely have like insomnia. So going to sleep is the big one for me. Yeah. So.
And why is that? Are you replaying shit in your mind or?
Yeah, definitely. And the last couple of years is really when I've been able to have like the professional depth to support me through some of the stuff. Okay. And so like Iraq is a big one. So like in Iraq, 2015 dropped over 127,000 pounds of HE. Right. And after my first like kick at the cat there, I mean, we were like 7-8 bombs deep into it. And then after a month, then I wasn't sleeping. It was just like,
so you're dropping bombs on these people. Can you see them at all?
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that you can see are the fighting positions. Right. Right. You can see hot spots from like a mortar or a rocket being used. dropped on houses where you can see machine gun fire, like the spray coming out of a window,
right.
like those hot spots. And sometimes it was just like, hey, Dave, there's the house. It needs to be dealt with. And then it's like, all right, all I've got is a 2,000-pound JDAM from a B-1 bomber, but like it's gone now.
It's going to do the job.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really something. So
you're not as distanced from the kill as the pilots who were dropping the bombs in.
Well, it depends. Half my tour was spent like in an air-conditioned operations center.
Yeah.
And the other half, there was periods where I was on literally the front line. So like you can see those guys, and there's a number of like close calls. Definitely like one where we're like being bracketed with like barbecue propane tanks that had like really good stuff welded to them and fins, given a propellant obviously, and it was impressive, like being bracketed like that, and then
like it's amazing what they come up with.
Oh yeah,
like from a simple piece of plastic garbage can to a to, like you say, a propane tank.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be on your guard all the time.
Yeah, I think one of the things that pissed me off the most, that does keep me up, is how the politics came to play in 2015. So this is a really hard one for me to get over, but like being told, and I quote, "You can't die because it's an election year back home in Canada," like that's fucking insulting. Thanks tips, like don't die. But yesterday I could have, like, that was okay then, but now there's an election year. So,
well, I always used to send my guys out the door with "don't get blown up," and they never got blown up. So it seems it worked.
Yeah. I mean, just your kind of like that leadership due diligence. And, but also like a lot of the control was taken away from controllers, especially on the front line.
Okay. So let's back it up a little bit. Yeah. Tell us what you're doing out there.
Yeah. So
what's your position? You're a SO JTAC or?
Yeah. So 2015 was SO JTAC Instructor, detachment commander. And I went out there with my detachment of just 3 guys. So they occupied 2 areas on the front line. And then I would be in the operations center, seconded to an American brigadier general. So for the most part, Brigadier General Odom, and I think he was airborne. He was. And then so, I worked with him quite a bit, and his team is really impressive. However, he was the one that had to say, okay, yeah, now you can drop the bomb. That was like a lot of really interesting challenges as a Canadian, because then you got to see who else was involved in that process. Like Washington is a phone call away.
Yeah.
He definitely wanted more control than what was usually, as far as I'm concerned, necessary or required.
Over your mission, you mean?
Yep. Like, for example, like, all right, if the legal O says, like, this is good, like, Dave, I want that target gone. But then, he'd try to, like, play with it, manipulate it a little bit. And to the point where you could have a Reaper in with heading and asking me to release the weapon, and then he would wait.
And a Reaper is what?
The Reaper's a drone the size of an A-10,
yep.
And it can carry 4 Hellfires or a number of the same amount of like 500-pound laser-guided bombs, probably some more toys on it nowadays. And then you almost, then the plane moves outside of the cone to be able to release, because the general waited so long. On what I don't know. Sometimes he was literally in meetings about logistics and administration for the camp in Erbil. And it was just kind of a shit show that way, that responsibility was taken away from JTACs.
Yep.
Because Afghanistan wasn't like that at all. But to see this guy do that, then I'd have to like diplomatically explain to him that the aircraft was incapable of hovering in a position until he made a decision, and it's actually moving forward, and the cone, the window of opportunity like had disappeared. So now he's got to turn around. That's going to take a while because it's not a jet, it's a propeller driven aircraft.
Yeah.
And so just breathe.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question we didn't discuss, and
shoot.
I don't ask this question because I hate the fucking question myself.
All right.
But I'll ask you a variety of it. Because of the difference in engaging a target with your personal weapon and engaging with a bomb.
Yeah.
What difference did you find, if anything?
So for me, I've never actually shot a guy. Warning shots, like bullets at the feet.
Yeah.
And I've turned over guys to the ANA.
Okay.
Like, I'm pretty sure their existence after they were handed over to the Afghan National Army was like, not a lot of fun whatsoever.
Yeah. Unless they had money.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to dropping the bomb, like, I had no problems with it, except like the sheer amount of weapons that was dropped in Iraq.
Yeah.
I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
Like, after a month, it was nuts.
It's amazing the money we'll spend on killing each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, we can go talk about Iraq even more later, but like, Afghanistan saw me like gun run with A-10, rockets out of Kiowa, and some work with an AC-130. And I just had like a huge heart on to do my job because I really loved it. So like, I remember that first A-10 run that I was going to do, that was kind of easier because like bullets cracked overhead. Yeah. So how close they were, if it was even for me, I'll never know, but it's like, now this man must die.
Yeah.
Right. It was like super clear. I know for a fact that like the digits I wrote on my notepad for line 6, which is the like coordinates the A-10 was giving me, they didn't correspond with what I said. I was just so nervous the first time, like it was a giant shit show. Yeah. But that A-10 guy, he just talked me through it, and then I understood where the enemy was on the battlefield. Yeah. And it's like, west to east attack, and eventually it was 2 guys that were huddled up together. I brought in a medevac for one of the guys. We never found the second one, and that was my
pieces of them.
No, not even. Oh. Like, the Predator, another drone, was supposed to be looking at something else, but as soon as a lot of these guys hear something's gonna blow up, like, they just put their camera where that is, so they like drop their tasking I gave them. But you see 2 guys there, and then we just take one off the X. So I did a medevac call for that guy after the gun run, and that was really interesting because when we did the Chinook insertion on that mission, and Derek Lewis was there for that one as well. I had 2 F-15s and an AC-130 with the Reaper. Yep. And then when we got off the Chinook, there was a troops in contact up north for some Green Berets, and so they pushed all those assets except the Pred. So the Pred's like the one-trick pony where it's got a Hellfire, and that's it. Yeah. It takes like 2 seconds for their audio to get back to you, because at the time they were working out of like Las Vegas, right? And so you can hear them before they talk to you. The radio crackles to life a certain way. Yeah. And then I was like, I don't hear anything, but now the Pred's going to talk to me. And they're like, hey, just so you know, there's like something happening up north, so we're the only guys in the stack. And I was like, it's such a, I just loved having go big or go home, like everything overhead. Yeah. But when we got to the release point, about a few hundred meters from the objective, we took a knee, and then Hog 6-3 checked in. And so, like,
Hog 6-3 being?
Hog 6-3 is the A-10 call sign, so it's 6-3 and 6-4 overhead. Yeah. So I just took a couple minutes, routing and safety of flight, put them overhead, quick talk on, this is what we're doing in the next 5 minutes. And then it was pretty good. So snipers on the objective, like a very short firefight. That's where I saw the guy with like the 90-degree bend in his leg. Yeah. And then my guys were squirting to the northeast.
Squirting meaning running?
Yeah, running away. And so the snipers were going at it. And then at one point, the pilot just says, I can take him now. So when I had that, the confidence of what that meant in there. And then he's also pointing it with his infrared pointer, so we can all see where they're at. Yeah. And the snipers were just shooting away, but like, it wasn't happening. They did get a hit or 2 on the guy because he was being slowed down. The A-10s are giving me the play-by-play, and then the ground force commander like was getting kind of maybe short. So he goes, all right, Dave, like, what do we got here? And I remember this, I'll never forget. I was like, fuck yeah, 30 millimeter, not danger close. The effects are going to go from the west to the east away from the ground force. And then I remember trying to pull information from the blocking positions. I was definitely excited, overly excited. No one was talking to me on the radio, so I felt like I lost control a little bit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when the A-10 came down the chute and I cleared him hot, he didn't hear that, but his number 2 did. And so it was a short burst, but it was still 250 pounds worth of 30 millimeter, you know, like 80% of it concentrated within a 40-foot circle.
Yeah, I've been in the ops room when the guns have gone off to blow up a target, and you're watching it tear up the ground. Everything around it is just being destroyed. And I'm watching this one guy who was a squirter, and he hid behind a rock about the size of your head. I'm not saying you have a big head, but
I get it.
It was a sizable rock, and he's getting tore up all around him, and he somehow lived. Not a scratch on him. Like his buddy got killed, but he was not scratched. He shit his man jammies, I'm sure. But
another A-10 strike of mine in Iraq, we dropped 400 or 500 pound bombs of different varieties on 2 guys. The first bomb took care of 1 guy. And then after that, it was like cue the Benny Hill theme song, right? And this guy was the fastest human being alive. We tried a proximity fuse setting, so the shrapnel spraying down on him. We did a delay fuse setting where we're hoping the shale and like rock of the mountainside is going to spray on him. Like a contact, like right on the guy. And I was like, this is insane. And then we had to stop just because of like the rules of engagement and the law of armed conflict, obviously. And then,
but how much cost was expended on that one guy?
Like for weapons wise, is probably around the $100,000 mark. But I mean, there's also fuel that you take into consideration there.
Yeah, the pilots paid.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want to break it down to all the maintainer hours and stuff like that, you know.
Now, if we could just focus on taking that money and doing good with it. Well, I mean, I think you and I agree there are people that need to be killed or should be killed.
100%.
No amount of jail time or rehab is ever going to fix them.
Yeah. What was it? Have you heard of Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah.
So I love listening to this guy just because of the spin he puts on physics, right? So what was it? He said the F-35 fighter program for all the countries involved in it over the course of its 30, 40 years of flight is going to be over $1 trillion. That's one airplane. And then NASA to date, I think, or like not a year. I forget the details exactly, but it dwarfs in comparison. It's like $150 billion. You know, for like space exploration and just moving the yardsticks forward for humanity. But like
creating a space force.
Yeah, but we're gonna go ahead with this F-35, which is just drives me bananas, you know, to replace the A-10. But I can't influence that.
No, neither can I, and I wish they'd hang on to it. But enough. We're going down a rabbit hole. That's our first rabbit hole. It's good, and we pull ourselves out of it. So what we're, I guess, would it be say you've got airplanes stacked on top of each other, waiting to go in, and you're calling them in, hopefully with enough time in between so they're not shooting each other or dropping bombs on each other. What's your biggest fear about that?
I don't really have a fear about it. It's 3D spatial abilities, and it's really a parking lot in the sky. Okay. So you can be artistic about it because it really is, and then you just have to understand what you've done with your stack, who's got gas remaining, roughly what weapons are on board. Usually some aircraft will just have different weapons than others. And then you have to be acutely aware as to the changing dynamics on the battlefield. So the training that we've given ourselves in special operations as JTACs is really, I haven't seen anyone train that well to it. If I would be missing anything, I'd want to work in Nellis on like a weapons instructor course, which is secret, no foreign. So I can't get out there. It's like 6 months of every day, wake up at 5, brief, execute, debrief, do it again twice a day type stuff. So that's where I would have liked to really kind of like become more rounded. But as far as the mission goes, You're just, once you've done it so many times, it's no longer sequential, what I tell people. It's not park them in the sky. What do you have? This is what I'm dealing with. Here's the 9 line, the coordinates to the target, and then the execution piece, and then maybe the reattack, or back to routing and safety of flight, which is parking them in the sky. It becomes modular after a while. And so it's one of the things we couldn't practice to because it's so expensive to conduct close air support training.
And what's the 9 line there?
The 9 line is just like a contract between you and the pilot.
Okay.
And it's designed in such a way that one of you two have to catch the mistake. And if you don't, then a blue on blue happens almost every time.
Yeah.
And so essentially, IP, which is the initial point, heading and distance the aircraft has to take to come on in. This stuff will be given just so that the weapon, when it flies through the stack, other people's blocks and stuff like that, and then when it hits the target, you may be doing it on purpose so that if the bomb lands short, it's not on friendly forces or like say a mosque. Yeah. And then once the bomb explodes, you want the spray to go away from you or a school and stuff like that. Yeah. So then you're talking about like final attack headings in there and a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of tools. The flexibility afforded to the JTAC is vast.
You feel that kind of pressure?
At the beginning I did. Yeah. So today one of the challenges I deal with is like control. When I lose control, I lose my fucking mind. And so like I've triaged an accident a couple of years ago, one summer, just showing up on my Harley, like awesome, totally in the element. This is like not a JTAC thing, but like for probably operators in general, right? Yeah. Or a lot of military.
You've done advanced medical training.
Yeah, to some degree. Well, I'll keep them alive for an hour, and so from there, being a controller and being used to just like having it my way or no way. But now, like as a civilian, I have to just understand the fact that it's no longer like that. So if my daughter's got like a glass of milk and she spills a little bit in the kitchen, it's like the fucking end of the world, But I mean, if there's a car crash, no problem. Let's deal with it. Yeah. So I have to pivot how my brain thinks about things, to kind of quote business mentality there. Yeah. But just kind of refocus and readjust. But definitely being a controller for that long and also an instructor and having significant responsibility is something that I miss, but I have to get used to it.
Speaking about mess, what's your biggest oops factor?
My oops factor?
Yeah, or biggest oops. What did you do that you go, I could have done that better? Or
the biggest fuck
I'm
up?
not saying, yeah.
Yeah. Controlling wise overseas as a JTAC, I don't have anything really on my mind. Probably like the first control I did where like I didn't really have to talk to the A10. Mm-hmm. I just said numbers that I didn't even write down, or he was just a shit show, right? But like I just used it as my best lesson learned. Mm-hmm. Like again, it was modular. Like it wasn't sequential like we execute it in training. So I wouldn't necessarily say an oops, but a huge lesson learned for me.
Okay. What do you hold as your biggest success?
My biggest success?
Yeah.
I think
in theater. Don't say your daughter or something.
No. Biggest success in theater, I think, is just doing as much as I did overall. We're at 35 minutes there. So, but like oops wise, like thinking back on it today and seeing like how marriage affected by the service and stuff like that. And not by the service. My biggest oops is definitely not paying enough attention to the friendships and relationships that I had in special operations. Yeah. Because in the last few years when I did ask for help, then help came from the strangest of places. Super welcome.
Like what?
Just like people who really I didn't know if they would even care to kind of like assist and stuff like that, right? And equally, it was a good opportunity because I saw some people in the social circle that kind of you would assume they're there for you, and they just couldn't deal with it. So like if there's an oops, I wish I spent more time just investing in those relationships while I was in the regiment.
Okay, that sounds like a good place to start part 2. So we'll take a quick break here and be right back. Great, we're at part 2 with Raucous Baucus with Dave Pepin. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
I'm famous for screwing up last names, man. Even people I've known for decades.
That's a good one. Thank you.
Before we get into it, a word from my sponsor, Army Guy Graphics. That's all one word. Telling your war stories through graphic arts. Shirts, license plates, decals, you name it, Steve can do it. Tell him Raucous Baucus sent you. Once again, that's Army Guy Graphics on Facebook. All one word. Enjoy. Okay, where were we, Dave? We were talking about your biggest oops.
Yeah, so just like in closing, that biggest oops was definitely having left the military as a whole. That's the biggest one. Is I just wish I invested more into my friends and relationships than I did at the time. So
you didn't make friends within the community or outside the community, or what do you mean?
Outside the community,
like you didn't have a broad enough support group. Is that what you're saying?
I definitely did have a support group, but for me, I was just trying to keep the family front like on rails with all the traveling that we do and stuff, right?
Yeah. How long are you married or are married?
No longer married, was married 17 years.
Yeah.
So after an exit not long ago from another government department, I was able to be at home for the first time, a complete year for the first time in like 2003. So then I got to see a little bit what the home front was like, and it's just not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But with that said, when you're in the military, there's tons of commentary about, like even from commanding officers, it's like go home and invest into like, you know, your family and stuff like that. And you really get the feeling that you're the bad guy in a sense, right? Like everyone's there for you, and there is truth to that. I just couldn't differentiate between, you know, what was there and a partner that was not. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But the way the cookie crumbled today is like fantastic. So.
Yeah, I think I'm fairly fortunate in the fact that I did build some relationships, and when I recently became ill, these guys and girls were there for me if I needed anything to help out, and they've been solid all through the last couple of years. So
awesome.
I guess I did that right.
Yeah.
Despite the fact you keep going out the door and going out the door.
Yeah.
You know, when I interviewed Roman, he said we were talking about over deployments and guys needing rest, and he says, you know, we'll keep doing it as long as you keep ordering us out the door. We'll, you know, drag ourselves with our teeth if we have to, but we're going to get it done. And that shit, that mentality is good for getting things done, but it's terrible on family lives. You know,
like it's important to have, but that's where the duty of care comes within a large corporation or organization like, you know, Department of National Defense.
Yeah.
It's like people are saying it, right? Okay, got to take care of you. And it's like, fantastic. Go tell the general so he can tell members of parliament to chill out.
And well, you got to tell the prime minister to chill out because he's a dog that runs the show. And
he's running something.
Let's not get into the current one. I mean, overall.
Yeah.
Because he has actually more power in government than, say, the U.S. president has. Because he, you know, they have more checks and balances. We've got first past the post voting. It's controlled by the East, and the rest of the country gets shit. And wait a minute, I digress. My point was
the rabbit hole.
Yeah, the point was the prime minister has more political clout than most any other free world government out there. But he can't. He's got a majority government. There's no way of getting him out of there.
Next election.
Yeah, next one. It's always the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Where were we? So you got out of the military, and why did you get out of the military?
I got an opportunity to do some serious work with another government agency in Canada. And after almost a year-long recruiting process, I was able to work for them in northern Iraq. And so the deal there was work there for us in northern Iraq, and when you're done, you'll have a desk job in Ottawa. So it was an opportunity to move my family into the city. We love Ottawa, beautiful place. It's still there now. However, when I showed up to this organization, I literally went to Iraq, and then they decided to tell me that everything they told me with regards to rest and relaxation and vacation time for services rendered was shot down from a month and a half to 9.9 days. So over the course of 2 years, I spent a year of my life in Iraq, and they saw it fit to give me like 19 days off for that year. So the way I look at it is I missed out on 3 months of like vacation FaceTime with my kids and my wife at the time. Yeah. I've got an email that says, Mr. Pépin, it is unfortunate that you were misled in the hiring process. So you bet your ass I went to like access to information and got that email out and give that to a lawyer. And then you go through the internal process, right? And they're like, yeah, Dave, we did tell you that. But the policy changed. And so they don't want to make it about how the policy changed 5 or 4 months before I joined. Yeah. Because if someone told me, hey, Dave, that month and a half or 6 months overseas, it's now like not even a week and a half. Yeah. I would have said, thank you. I'm going to stay in the job that I love, which is dropping bombs. Yeah. Right? Period. That's it. And so at the end of the day, my contract came to an end, and then they didn't re-sign it.
So you had a 2-year contract or a 3-year or what?
It was supposed to be 3 years. And then I guess the 3 years over there starts when human resources starts like looking into your file and hiring you. Yeah. And so they changed that one on me. So it wasn't a true 3 years. It was just like an incredible traumatic affair all around. And even to the point where like senior management was telling you that when you're in Iraq, your evenings and your weekends are on your own time. Mm-hmm. It's like, where are you going to go with like a 9 mil in your pants, right? Like the
local shisha shop will welcome you in.
Yeah, like we did some runs and stuff like that. That's fine. But I mean, like I wasn't going to the Russian strippers or anything like that to like, you know, cut the edge off.
Did the Russians bring in strippers?
Yeah, there's a footprint in there. Like everyone's got like their fingers in the pie, and like I still don't even scratch the surface in the understanding of northern Iraq as far as I'm concerned. So I haven't been in there since 2019, and like who knows how it's morphed these days. But it is sad.
It's a constantly changing place. I mean, it's unfortunate the Americans went in the way they did, and didn't have any follow up. Because we're getting a lot of guys killed for no good reason. Mm-hmm. But I'm jaded.
I hear you.
I think the more time that I've been out of the military and I'm away from it, the more time I'm not anti-military. I'm just, we get tied up in some stupid shit, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was an older guy when I got into it, so I understood that, yeah, you're going to get ordered to do stuff that you don't agree with, possibly. But that's the job. Yeah. But now I think, why is that the job? Why are we dropping trillions and billions of dollars on, you know, a couple of fucking gray pots to
big time?
You know, we could be putting that money into development or some fucking thing.
Or the other part of that can be like, I'm thinking about, you know, when we had our dog handler like lose the bottom of his legs in 2011. Yeah. And so it's like, see those 3 guys over there? Yeah. They've got AK-47s. All right. And they're maneuvering around us. They've shot at us. I mean, that's a target. Yep. Period. And then if your ground force commander says, Dave, we're trying to like get the people locally on our side, we're not dropping bombs. I was like, we're going to deal with those 3 assholes tomorrow and the day after until they get one of us, you know? And it's just, I don't even know how that guy wasn't murdered. I mean, he left later on, but I think it was incredible amount of strength on the part of all operators to just kind of like, you know, swallow that. Yeah. And so, like you said earlier on, some people do deserve to die. Yeah. And like, I think I sleep well because everyone that was KIA like deserved it. Like it was, you could see it, you know, it's like, that's a bad guy, done. But sometimes it was just like, oh no, we can't do it. Optics. It's like, are you kidding me? Like 2015, same thing, optics. The Kurdish people had like like a SoCal Hummer that was matte black painted, just missed flames or like some tiger teeth on there or something. And for us, we couldn't use the Hummers. We had to use like SUV that were, what do you call it, up armored. And because of like the public relations aspect and the optics.
The Humvee was just too aggressive.
Yeah, for ISIS on the front line. Shut up. Like, come on.
So you got out, you went to school for a while.
Yeah, that was a really good thing. So after my contract had ended with the other government agency, then I started working executive security to the governor of the Bank of Canada.
Nice.
So it was just kind of like a point to have a job.
Good pay?
It was okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But like no benefits and stuff.
Okay.
It's like it's definitely an environment where veterans are taking, not abuse, it's too powerful of a word, but taking advantage of other veterans. It's gross. So from there,
it's low risk as well, I'd imagine. Yeah.
It is low risk, but some of the scenarios that are there, like you see some of the online chatter about what, they think the governor is like a Jew, and then it's like you get those kind of actors get in there, and you just don't know when someone's going to do something, right? Yeah. But we had no training, no nothing. I was in a suit, I looked like a stud, and just walked around and like really put a lot of points on my Aeroplan card. So
he looks like a stud without a suit there, people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll take all that I can get. And so from there, then I made the decision, talked to a few influential people within D&D and the RCMP. And then they said, Dave, you could do a master's in securities, but you'll be really honed into that, right? But if you do a master's of business administration, then you can diversify a little bit. So I took on way too much with the executive MBA at Telfer Ottawa U. Just because I wasn't recognizing the symptoms of like what I was going, and I needed to invest in myself. Yeah. So I squeezed through the first year. I still have like 7 months to do to have my master's degree. I'm going to do it, but at the moment I'm just working on myself.
What symptoms were you going through?
So one of them is definitely anxiety. So diagnosed in 2012, but I learned about it really, just a few years ago. Like nobody told me that, hey, Dave, we've just diagnosed you with this.
Is it something that you noticed throughout your life, or is it something that...
No, I didn't notice throughout my life as much as I just thought that's what you go through when you're an adult. Mm-hmm. So leaving the forces was violent, but I went into like a paramilitary job with that other government agency. Yeah. So it just never stopped, the traveling. Yeah. So the biggest challenge with the MBA is, I think as a special forces operator, you think outside the box and you can bring a lot of innovation and thought process to that. Yeah. Writing, not being an officer was definitely the hardest thing for me, like way behind the curveball.
Like on writing papers and
yeah. Like I got a couple A+ in there, but they were just because I knew exactly what that one professor, how she wanted me to write, right? But that was 2 weeks of my life where I neglected like my kids and myself and my dog, and but I got an A+, right? So I can do it, but it's a significant effort. And then the symptoms that I was realizing is just like, hey, Dave, this is due like Wednesday. And my body just kicks into overdrive. It wants to take on the mission, right? It wants the ceaseless challenge, as CSOR operators will say. Yep. And it's just not like that anymore. I got to like be able to sit down and feel comfortable with it and just take time to think. But the brain is always like wanting to go back to war because I was trained to do that. I'm really comfortable doing that. So dealing with civilians and just seeing like human resources do some of the bewildering things that they do, that'll definitely kind of set me off.
What did you have any experiences in school dealing with students? Like it came up, you were in the military somehow? And...
The first day that I introduced myself in my class, like I just blanket statement, like, in the military, 14 years. I did this other thing. I work with the governor of the Bank of Canada at the moment, and like security background. And I'm just looking to learn and grow. And then I had mentioned that I had spent 3 years of my life in Afghanistan and Iraq. And then somebody got triggered from that, and I had to hear about it later. And And that was a wake up call. It's like, I didn't say.
What did they tell you? Did they tell you you can't talk about your military service, or?
No, they're not allowed to tell you that, right? They're just like, hey, we have like these processes within the university, and you just next time be sensitive about it, because then I might have to do some online sensitivity training. And like, to be quite honest, like the way I've learned from it is I could go to human resources first and say, hey, listen, I got triggered when that woman said she's worked in a cubicle environment for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's devastating to be under neon lights.
In a tight little space.
Yeah, and your phone is like not on mute, but the lowest ring volume and stuff like that, or maybe the light flashes because you don't want to disturb other people. To me, that's frightening, like it is those government spaces. But I mean, I can't do that.
It's unbelievable. I mean, have you had people you've been introduced to ask if you've killed anybody, or?
I think kids, like my sons.
Yeah, outside of kids. I mean, kids are
they're
naturally
curious,
curious,
right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of rare. I think a lot of it, and I get this at hockey too. When I go play hockey as a goalie, like a lot of pickup. And when the guys find that out, there's probably one or two guys that are just super comfy, and then the rest of them is just kind of like when they find out that you see the heads are hanging, and they just don't know how to deal with it. And the last time I came out of Iraq, my wife had bought her house in Ottawa. The kids were signed up in hockey, and I literally came off the plane, went straight to the hockey rink, and this is when I really got a good clue of where civilians were like with the military, even though I wasn't in the military at the time. And they're like, so how was Afghanistan? And I was like, I was on the last combat mission in Afghanistan, and that was in 2011, and this is almost like 10 years after the fact. And like, there's not a soul in Afghanistan from Canada right now, So it was kind of a wake up call to see. They don't know. It's just not vocalized by the leadership, which are members of parliament, that we actually have it, and this is why we do it. So it's kind of a shame that way.
What are your opinions on getting the interpreters and the families of the people that worked for us overseas into Canada? And do you think it was a shit show from the word go?
It was a shit show from the word go, because some of the people that I've known internally, like there were colonels and generals like sending emails on a Friday and saying, okay, we'll pick this up on Monday. And it's like, people's lives are at risk.
Yeah.
And you're fucking paid, and you're like under the National Defense Act. You can work 24/7, right? And especially at that rank level.
But there was nothing in place for these guys.
No, it's pathetic.
Like, these are guys, the interpreters, as you know, are going out on the patrols, going out on hits, whatever. And they're not getting brought into Canada. It's just shameful. Absolutely shameful.
The only thing that bugs me is there are guys that you just know he's a good dude.
Yeah.
And then there are others that were shady as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just wondering what the criteria is to bring those guys in, right? Because there are definitely a couple guys that are on my mind that it's like, no, you're not getting on the plane.
Yeah, but I can think of the young guy that would clean up around my UMS, and he was just
there's good people there.
Naive young guy. Yeah, there are good people there.
A lot of them.
One of my first impressions, we were driving down Highway 1 from Kabul to Kandahar.
Yeah.
And always an exciting time. And we come through this one little shanty town, and this kid waved at me, and I waved back at him, and this guy behind him just smokes him. I'm going, fuck, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, he hit this kid hard. And I'm betting that kid didn't wave at foreign soldiers again. I'm thinking, what the hell kind of country are we in here? Not everybody is happy with us being here, apparently.
No.
It's outstanding.
I think one of the challenges with Afghanistan is just, I saw how important in Iraq education was.
Yeah.
I was teaching a mortar class to some Kurds, and the younger men, like in their early 20s, they sat down at the tables that we provided for them, and they sat there properly. They organized their paper in front of them with eraser and pen, and they were prepared to learn. because they saw the whiteboard in front, and I was going to use that. And all the old dogs and Shala were like backs against the wall at the back of class, and they're like, God willing, it's going to work. And it's like, that's not physics or any kind of geometry, right? And so, but Iraq was really cool because the final training exercise was actually doing the test on ISIS, which I thought was just badass. And they did really well. Where I'm going at with all this is, in Afghanistan, we brought a lot of technology to a people who are in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Right? Like obviously they're not completely in the Stone Age, but there's so much basics that they're missing. So like they're looking
fucking
for,
not far from the Stone Age. That's a fact.
they're looking for the next $20 for the meals the next couple of days.
Yeah.
And their services are out to the highest bidder or whoever is going to keep them alive the longest, right? You can't put it past them, but that is kind of an influx that we gave them, is all this tech. And it's just interesting to see what they do
How long
with
is it
it.
going to last there? I mean, unless they get the Russians to come in and help them out, which seems unlikely.
You never know.
Yeah, Chinese maybe?
Maybe. There's definitely there's Chinese mercenaries out there, right? And there's definitely Russian mercenaries as well. Or a little bit of everyone, probably.
Oh, yeah.
But like for them, like when the fall happened last year, I was really comfortable with my take on education. That after 20 years, if you're a people that don't understand that a few will have to make the ultimate sacrifice so that the greater vision moves forward on rails, and you want to you had all the gear.
Yep.
You had the advantage of all this training and stuff, and then you dropped it. So it's like, no problem. So when my son says, Dad, I'm thinking about joining, and it's like, no. Like my immediate family's got over 100 years of service.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly comfortable watching you go to university, go get a women's gender studies Bachelor of Arts, all right, and go have all the excellent human feels that you can and indulge and do that, right?
Yeah, but aren't we kind of hypocrites saying that? I mean, because both of us would return to the theater. Well, I sort of speaking for you, but we spoke about it earlier.
I would.
Yeah, we would go back in an instant.
Yeah.
But we're telling our kids, no, that's not the job for you. Be smarter than that. Go to school.
What I'm saying here, to be clear, is if my son wants to join, I'm going to have several talks with him.
Yeah.
I was nervous as a kid watching my parents go, even though there was no Afghanistan back then.
Yeah.
I literally, when you see a plane leave or the car go, it's pretty fucking fast. When the boat's pushing off with a tugboat, it takes forever for that thing to go over the horizon. It's the shittiest feeling as the kid ever. And I always told myself, I'm never joining the military. And then I look at me, I went into Special Operations Forces and deployed you wouldn't believe.
So what attracted you to SOF?
Jumping out of airplanes.
Well, you could have done that without SOF.
Yeah, I know. I did it in the conventional force, and then when I was in the artillery, I needed more.
Yeah,
it became boring really fast.
No doubt.
Basic training was the worst experience of my life because I was I just want to do it. Let me polish my fucking boots.
Yep.
Right? But the instructor still has to yell at you. It's never good enough, right? And I was like, you're just making me angry.
Yeah.
And then in special operations on the course, really came into my own as an adult.
Yeah.
Because
you're being treated as an adult.
You're treated as an adult, but I was definitely, and still am to some degree, but I wasn't emotionally intelligent. So when I couldn't control something, I would just yell. So that worked okay, in basic training and stuff like that. Almost like a traditional army guy, if you will. But I've always been like that. And then being surrounded with the amazing talent, men and women in the community, it's either grow or kind of get out.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see that piece there.
The only part other place I've seen that in was the Airborne Regiment. And one case I remember specifically was we got a new signaler in, the OC got a new signaler in, and we put in an attack, and the signaler couldn't keep up. He was gone that like 3 days later. Clear out your fucking history. We're getting somebody else in. They didn't
mess around.
There was no fuckery. Well, obviously there was some fuckery, or we wouldn't have got disbanded. But
100%.
But from a training perspective, it was and training perspective and care for each other. There's a genuine bond there.
Yeah.
That you probably want to get you don't get that at I don't know, service battalion or something. You only get that in a combat arms kind of environment.
It's when shared hardship.
Yeah, you've trod the same ground, risked the same, taken the same risks,
and then you probably better appreciate it after some time. Yeah. Like I see a lot of guys, I think, running towards that brick wall that I kind of hit, and they just don't see it yet until you leave, and then the mission is over. So you need to identify a new mission really fucking fast, or else, like, who knows what your brain's going to do to you.
What was your routine when you got home after a tour?
It's really good. I was like always going to do something big with the family. So like in 2007, it was like a honeymoon / getaway to Jamaica, get married and honeymoon at the same time. So 2 weeks away. Yep. In 2009, my wife at the time and I, what we did is we flew into Barcelona. I rented like a Toyota minivan that was souped up. So the back is like a kitchenette and like a bed space.
Nice.
It's just us two. So we drove around Europe in that for like 20 days. Went like along Pisa, Rome, Venice, through the Alps, Paris, back down to Barcelona, a few days on the beach. But like that stuff is like, I need it. Keeps my brain occupied. But we were going where we wanted, when we wanted. Yeah. Right.
You weren't on somebody else's schedule.
100%. Yeah. And during the tour, I was planning all of this, right? Like my wife didn't know it at the time, but I was like, this is important to me. So I had like, point A, B, C, D, etc. And then 2011, went down to Australia for a couple of weeks. That was a good one. And then in 2015, I forget what we did after 2015. But then with Northern Iraq in 2018, 2019, I brought the family to London, England. Mm-hmm. So we met up with another plank holder, Chris Doyles, who was out there. Yep. So Linda and the kids flew out. I was coming out of Iraq. And so, again, like a modern Volkswagen van, though, this time, so it doesn't fail, into Belgium, the Netherlands, saw Vimy, down to Paris for my daughter, and then back Juno Beach, back to London, like a good couple of weeks.
So your routine is to not really have a routine other than getting out of Canada and traveling around and blowing off some steam and
100%.
Recovering.
You cannot just go to the couch. Not me anyways.
No. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are. I know. So you don't have any ill effects, like you're not nervous around little brown people or anything like that?
Hearing the call to prayers.
Yeah.
Like it's it'll just make me think about it a lot. But like brown people know dirt paths. I don't dig that. I remember in Afghanistan, Andre was our EOD, and and then he's indigenous background, right? So sometimes it's like I don't see what you're seeing. Like I don't have the same training he does, but he's like swatting dirt and rocks away, and then you'd find a mine, right? And I was like, I didn't see that. It's like there's got to be a spirit telling him or something like that. Yeah. And then at the same time, you're just worried about you're going to see him, and then in a flash, is he going to disappear? Yeah. So, I mean, the amount of times I had to take a knee and just like cover his arcs while he's doing his job is just a shitty feeling. And but it's always impressive to see how cool he was about it. Even when the guy Bobby lost his legs, like on the video, you see Andre, this giant, he's a giant, get blown upwards into a wall, and he falls on his feet, and he collapses his like metal detector baton, sweeps the area, like in a second. And then he's taken out like the foot powder and saying, okay, this is a possible area, and he just proved the whole thing, right? Yeah. Like it was remarkable work.
Was Bobby the dog handler? Was he an American with a 666 tattoo on his neck?
I don't know if he had 666 on there, but yeah, he's
big boy from Alaska.
Was he? I don't know. Bobby Eldridge.
Yeah, I can't remember Buddy's name. His dog, one of his dogs was just psycho.
I don't think, no, he wasn't a big boy at all.
Okay, different guy.
Yeah, Bobby Eldridge, like a smaller frame guy. Great dude. He was my roommate over there at the VSO, so the Village Stability Operations. Yeah. And his dog was nuts. Like, it was really something. So when he was blown up, I was amazed, like getting ready. I had gunship and then the medevac bird coming in, but every moment I would look somewhere in the AO, the dog was there. Like, it was running everywhere. And I was like, this is insane. Like, you know, he's putting on tens of kilometers in that moment instead of like just chilling out. Yeah. But, that day was a horrible shit show of a day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to rank right up there with bad days.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the top 2 or 3 for sure.
You're getting help now, I guess, for depression and other
the anxiety
disorder, I guess.
And so like the work is in for PTSD. So like the big one is that anxiety piece just makes like the muscles clench, right? Okay. And so that just goes mentally, like 2.5 years now, almost 3 years with this one woman. And the one thing I recognized with her is that it's nothing like what we've received at the unit with terms of like psychological assistance at all. So like I get really emotional about it because this woman is there so that like I can make the best of my life moving forward. Yeah. I still have like half my career to go through, right? Whereas in the military now, it's really like, okay, he's coming back. Is he going to murder his family? No, check in the box, get in there. Or, hey, are you like ready to go kill people? Fantastic. Check in the box, get over there. Yeah. And that was really it. So like this one here though, it's like, there's a lot of tools. So like exposure therapy is what I'm doing. And so that's really challenging.
What's the exposure therapy involve?
For example, one of my incidences is almost drowning. And so I never really realized it. But,
you were a kid? You almost drowned or?
No, in 2009.
In theater?
Yeah. So it was like one of my first missions as a JTAC.
You fall into a well?
No, it was like a little kind of river type thing. So I did like a cartwheel in the water because the current was that strong. And then I just kind of like knew I was doing a cartwheel. So I was letting myself go. Yeah. But then I noticed that like my hand was into like clay to like my elbow. Mm-hmm. And because your upper body is heavy with your gear, then that's why it was easy for me to do a cartwheel. Yeah. But then your legs are so streamlined, the water is kind of going by. So and I do this, like I did it yesterday, you know, like twice, 2-3 times a week. The legs are now like kind of hunched over themselves. And I just accepted the fact that I was going to drown there because the plates are now like pushing my upper lip down. The helmet's like pushing it down my nose. It's super fucking uncomfortable. And then you want to open your eyes, but all you see is like a green glow in the darkness. Yep. So that's kind of spooky. So you just close your eyes. And when I found out that my arm was in the clay, then that's when I started swallowing water. Mm-hmm. And that was like ridiculously violent, just painful. And then what was shocking is understanding that I didn't have a say in the matter. It's just like, now it's time to start breathing, but you're breathing water. Yeah. And then it's just like flashes before your eyes. You do that thing really quick. And then when I found out that my legs were coming back down, I was about to be on all fours, just got right back up, you know, like puke out water on the embankment. Yep. But like the rest of that mission, like, and that's what the psych's trying to get me to do, is divorce myself from the mission and just think about that moment, which was a trauma. You don't have time to think about that. Like I literally had gunship and 2 F-15s that evening and a B-1 bomber, right? So you got to like manage these guys. They have no idea what's going on. Yeah. And we pulled up like a couple kilometers later to 2 guys that were supposed to be EWS, or the early warning system, but they were lying down. And because they had a carpet over them, the sensors of the planes didn't see their heat signature, but we caught them. And then, again, this is like one of my first hits. So the cries of grown men, like, you know, late at night, you're like sleep fucked. And then you just see these like robots with like chest rigs and stuff pick you up. Yeah. Like they knew the gig was up. Yeah. And then when we got to the gate, we were going to blow the gate to get inside the compound. But where I was in the stack, there was like a cutout in the wall. So I just put like my IR light in there, and there was like a small baby like that in the wall, but outside. This is the wall to get inside the compound, not even the house. And that was a moment where I was like, where the fuck am I? You know?
Well, I guess it's a way of keeping the kid cool.
Yeah, absolutely. But what was really funny about that too, like it's such a jam-packed event night. So now the snipers get on the rooftop. I get on there too after them and just kind of chill out. I was freezing because I just got completely wet head to toe. Yeah. It's like the difference is at night is like, you know, a 20-degree drop. So I'm shivering.
Yeah.
And then we walked back to like a cop, right? So we parked our vehicles there.
A cop being?
Some kind of outpost. I forget, like, it was the Dand District Center.
Actually, I forget what the C stands for too.
Yeah. Anyways, really.
Cop, folks, look it up.
Yeah, really small forward operating base.
Yeah.
You know, it's like really forward. So, but it was the Dan District Center, and we parked all our vehicles there. Now, before leaving to drive back to Graceland, our fob, what happened is 24 hours prior, a guy blew himself up at the gate, killed ANA and a couple Canadians.
Yeah.
So there's now like a lot of people at the gate. There's a concern. And at this time, I had a British tornado overhead. So what was really funny is I couldn't understand what the pilot was saying. And I told him, sir, I apologize.
But I can't understand a fucking thing you're saying.
Exactly. But I will ask you questions that just need a yes or a no.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you understand? And he's like, yes. Felt so bad. So I explained to him what's going on. And then I was like, here's my game plan. I want you to do a show of force. It's going to disperse people. And once they're dispersed, then we'll roll out. Fantastic. And then you see this dot coming down from the sky. And then he says, I see like a tower at this center. How tall is it? And I was like, 50 feet. And he's like, I'll be 70 feet off the ground. It's like, sweet. A lot of operators and assaulters had turned off their M-Biter radios at the time. So I was like, show of force, 60 seconds. A lot of guys had never seen a show of force either. Show of force, 30 seconds. And one of the guys was talking to the ground force commander by the window. And he swore on his life that he thought an RPG was coming in or like a mortar round into the compound, right? And boom, this tornado just takes off, like goes straight back up, popping some flares. And like for me, I just got a huge hard-on out of it, of course.
Yeah.
But like this guy went into the prone position faster than he's ever gone down, right? And then some of the guys had the audacity the following day. They had like a little newspaper on camp, and they're like, JTAC's an idiot. He put like the tornado at risk by flying it, 100 feet off the deck. And I had to explain to them that if you're looking to your right and you see the plane coming, you'll need to take the RPG and point to your left to try and hit that thing. Yeah. Like it's short of the speed of sound, right? So it was like a learning experience for all. But overall, from like maybe a near-death experience for me, like, taking in water into the lungs, like a jam-packed day.
Did you end up with an infection or anything?
No, nothing. Like I felt horrible because I thought I was going to be sick with the water. Yeah. But because there's clay there, the sand filtered. Yeah. And that's my challenge today is that I'll drink Perrier all day long. Yeah. I'll drink a coffee. But if I haven't eaten and it's super clean, like water, like it affects me. Yeah. And shower sometimes. Weird.
Yeah, that is odd.
It's just on the shoulders. So that's one of them. It's the first one, exposure therapy that we're doing. Yep. And then the next one are going to be those moments where, like, how am I not like dead after that? Yep. And then of course the Iraq, like the body count was just like, at first I was like, this is fucking cool. Now I can make my Hollywood movie. But of course there's tons of other operators with like tremendous stories, right? But for me, it was just like, that was a lot.
Yeah, I've got some cool stories over the years, but nothing that stands up besides a lot of these operators. You're like, oh, fuck. I remember talking to a guy, he goes, well, I wouldn't mind taking a bullet just in the plate, just enough to give you an idea of what it's like. And I said, well, it could go into your plate, but then it could ricochet up into your face.
Yeah.
And it would be not much fun anymore.
I don't want to try that.
Skip it completely.
Absolutely. We're at 40 minutes right now in the segment.
All right. Well, hang on. We'll cut out to part 3. All right. Welcome back to part 3 with Dave Pepin. Yeah, that's it.
You said that really well. Thank you.
Merci. Where are we going to go? Oh, yes. We'll give a plug out to Army Guy Graphics. That's all one word. Telling your war stories through graphic arts. He's got shirts, decals, license plates, whatever you can think of, Steve can do it. Tell him Rockets Bacchus sent you. And that's Army Guy Graphics, all one word, on Facebook. Thanks a lot, Steve. All right, back to you, David. Dave, I guess we can sort of sum up here a little bit. You have what to say about somebody joining the military today. Like if you had the wisdom of 25 years in and you know what you know, what would you say to somebody?
Yeah, if somebody wants to join, I'd say like get at it. Absolutely. Like what is it they want to get out of that, right? Like there's always that guy who wants to be a sniper like in Battlefield 3 and like under canopy parachuting with like a crazy Barrett 50 cal and shooting guys in the head. And they're going to be like going in for a wake-up call because there's nothing close to that. Just the administration alone of being a soldier is not what a lot of people anticipate. The service to country is like just really a beautiful thing. Like if you're going to get excited about doing something like that, then yeah, get in there. For me, I would definitely tell people if you love playing hockey, you're going to love the military because you're going to play almost every morning of your life, especially when you're younger ranks. Like those were amazing memories. Like played more hockey in the military than I did like when I was a kid certain years.
Well, it's you can no longer build a career on playing hockey.
No.
I mean, like when I first got in the 90s, it was starting to die off then. But if you were a good hockey player, you ended up in Germany playing hockey.
Yeah, I definitely been taken out of the field once to play hockey. So I got a good night's sleep. Then I played. Like right after my game, I was able to shower and then get back in the field and shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Bob Nanskeville, my neighbor over here.
Yeah,
he that's what he did. He was a good hockey player, and although he's lost his svelte, slim form now, he had the heart of a hockey player, and that's what he did. He ended up in Germany playing hockey.
Awesome.
And getting a wife.
Okay, win-win.
Well, it's all good.
It's an amazing ride, depending on what you choose to do. So if Buddy wants to come in and be military police, right, and you want to be a clerk, I mean, there's incredible job satisfaction there. But the amount of opportunities, regardless of your trade, to have these incredible stories, like I'm going to argue that a lot of your civilian friends, you're going to leave them in the dust, and they're going to some degree, become uninteresting just because... It's like they decided to sit there and do that. So is it an adventure? I think it is. And if you're proactive about what kind of adventure that you want, like you don't have to be special operations forces. Like I wanted that. Yeah. But if like we all know medics and signalers, guys
we've done
that
Pathfinders,
100%.
All sorts of courses.
Right. But even if like you're a clerk and you get to go on 9 Megan or you get on a ship and then you get to do a bunch of port visits and stuff like that. Those are all fucking beautiful things. Like get on it and go make a story. Like for me, it's had a fear being young of being put into the ground and being like, here lies Dave Pepin.
Did nothing.
Crickets.
Yeah.
So like now I got like a really cool story as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And my goal now after the military is when I'm 45, I need to have more than just war stories, right? So I've already got some where it's like I was skiing with my kids and then like I sped up to my daughter and grabbed her by the back because she was about to go like airborne into some trees, do some skiing. And and sharing those memories with someone special and the kids. So that's what I want to do. And then I'm trying to diversify with an MBA, what to do professionally. I think I'll always kind of be stuck with drones and JTAC type stuff a little bit, just because there's money in that. But it's definitely diversify and me not wanting to be like a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
So I know off air we kind of talked about it really quick, but if I did 25, 30 years, I would not want to see mentally what kind of state I'd be in. I saw my father after 38 years of service, and he never went to do some kind of conflict.
Yeah.
Like he hunted Russian submarines. You know, he was on board of a boat that would have done that sometimes.
So he was institutionalized.
Institutionalized, and for 2 years, like he had to get used to, you know, he was a chief petty officer first class, like top of the food chain.
Yeah.
And then he had nobody,
Yeah.
right? And even today, sometimes it's like, Dave, do this. It's like, no, I'm a 42-year-old man, and I'm not going to do that, right? So
See, I never had any of those issues getting out. When I got out, I promised myself when I got in that the minute I couldn't lead from the front, I'd pull the pin.
Okay.
And I ended up, you know, with what I thought was some injuries and stuff that was slowing me down. That's okay. I'm still fucking pushing forward. And then at one point, I just couldn't keep up. And I said, well, fuck, time to pull the pin. Unfortunately, I should have maybe hung on a little while until I was actually diagnosed while within the military.
I hear you.
But I just couldn't see myself getting people to do what I was unable to do. You know, tell them to do this. It didn't sit with me well. But I would say fucking join, because the stories you get. You and I, who really never did any deployments together or anything like that, we still can relate to some of the stories. We can tell the stories, and you'll clue into what it was and maybe build on it.
100%.
Whereas when I was a civvy, talk about when the last time I got really fucking loaded was. You know, well, as an army guy, you do that too.
Oh yeah.
But you're getting loaded in really exotic countries.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of those stories too. You're cut off now.
Yeah, don't inhale and swallow at the same time.
Want me to pat your back? You're okay?
Don't touch me, Dave.
All right, no problem.
Just show me on the doll where the bad man touched you.
Boundaries are important.
So I guess in summation, make friends outside the military, because you're going to need that balance in life. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they show some of the same interests you are. They'll never understand needing to go out and kill somebody. But that's just a circuit in their short circuit in their wiring, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to give the impression we're all a bunch of psychos, but I think most of the guys that join our units and regiments or go into the combat arms field want to be tested. Once they're tested, they often regret being tested, but they're proud of how they stood up. But the constant deployments, the constant stress can lead to mental illness or injury and PTSD. So, you know, if you're showing symptoms of this, go out and get help. You know, get outside your comfort zone. You know, talk to people who you normally wouldn't talk to because you only talk to Army guys. It'll make transition out of the military that much easier. If you're showing signs of depression or mental injuries of any kind, everybody knows about PTSD now. Other people are saying you're angry or you should go see somebody. You should probably listen, especially if it's your wife. Wives save lives over and over again. Because men are generally hesitant to go to a doctor. But when the wife says you should go to the doctor, you should go to the doctor. So listen to your wives, folks. Last word over to you, Dave.
Yeah, so I don't know, like last word for this interview, but like I'm halfway through a career and my life really. So from there, seeing where I'm at right now is in the past 2.5 years to 3 years, I really dig the emotional intelligence train that I've been riding just because I'm getting much more out of like the more mundane things in life. Regret not having studied while I was in the forces because we had so much downtime when you're away.
And we had money given to us to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So cool that I'm halfway through an MBA. I plan on finishing that and then using an MBA to diversify who I am as an individual. Yep. And then there's a lot of opportunities out there for veterans. And so they need to diversify and just get out there and be able to network. For me, it's just I got to work on the anxiety before I sit down for 8-10 hour days. But that comes with the emotional intelligence piece of recognizing it, like you said. And then you have, like I'm doing through, what do you call it there? Exposure therapy, like taking it head on. Yeah. So uncomfortable, sleep like crazy, but necessary. Like where I am from a few years ago, like just incredible rage. Like now I just do that at the gym. Like I go find that rage so I can lift weights, but that's it.
So your daughter spilling milk doesn't set you off anymore?
No, like now it's beautiful because like I can articulate, certain things and understand that it's going to happen too, right? Understanding what you cannot control. Like for me, that was like a huge one, like kind of when I understood that. So all that to say, like if you're in service and then you're going to get out, like just start doing some education. Yeah. Because twofold, one, you'll have an education, and the second one is it just keeps the brain going, right? So diversify what you're reading, give yourself projects, mathematics, stuff like that, or simple arithmetic just to get it going. Yep. Because we do bring valuable things into business and the civilian environment, but we need to be able to put that on paper and articulate it. Yeah. Just putting a resume together. Like I had one lady in human resources tell me, we don't drop bombs in Ottawa. And I was like, yeah, I get that, but it's more the planning and preparation of like kind of project management before you clear a plane hot, right? And also like everyone wants veterans because they show up 15 minutes early, right? And I've been around enough civilians now where it's like perfectly okay. Oh, someone was 10 minutes late. Yeah. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? That's a sin.
Yeah. I had that same issue when I started the job up on Baffin Island. We'd get to a safety brief or whatever we were doing that day. And you're supposed to be there for 8 o'clock. So I'm there at, 1:45, no later than 10 to. Yeah. Waiting for all these fucking people to show up. The instructor would be starting to talk, doing his talking, and other people would start wandering, and I'm going, fuck, I can't say anything, but it drove me crazy. Oh, yeah. And there are a couple other little things you got to adjust to, but, in the big picture, it's not that hard to adjust to. Mm-hmm. Even if I had a full head of hair, I'm not sure I'd go back to wearing long hair. I've sort of been institutionalized that way.
No, when it comes to job seeking, like I had one woman, I think it's Shared Services Canada, just like they're quadrupling in size or something like that. So in the course of a week, I saw the same woman with her HR team 3 times in a week for job interviews. And then the third time I get there, it's like, I'm going to escort Dave out. And so I was like, this is news, But anyway, she said, listen, you're a veteran, so you get a check in the box. And you're bilingual. That's another check in the box. But if you get a visible minority or a female who's got a degree and is bilingual, that's 3 checks in the box. Yeah. And that's how our Excel spreadsheet works. Yeah. So now I have to go get an education, and like I'm losing security analyst jobs over 22-year-olds with degrees and God knows what.
And you have the experience.
Yeah. Even at the one location, there was a position to be essentially like a section commander, like sergeant, just like I was, run 12 guys. They got guns, got to teach them how to use guns. Yeah. One of the people they hired was a female, had never used guns before, but don't worry, she's going to go get her
instructor's course,
her private arms license and an instructor's course, and then be able to do that. When like for me, like I've, tens of thousands of rounds went through the barrels of my guns. If not more. So from there, it's just kind of disheartening to see that. Yeah. And then people say like, well, we need diversity. It's like, I would argue that you need someone that can
knows
teach.
What they're doing.
Yeah, with the gun. Diversity is important because I understand the dynamics of different brains around the table and stuff like that. But there's certain positions where it's just like, you need a lot of accountability when you're using a firearm. I mean, I know for me, it's, like even there's a recruiting center that even said you're a Caucasian male in your 40s, we're never going to hire you. Yep. It's like, all right, check, right? So they're not looking for the best person out there. They've got their quotas to fill. So from that point, it's just like weaponize yourself, go get that education. But at the same time, it's going to be a good experience. The other people that'll be in the class, because again, that's a diverse environment, and then they're going to think different ways. You're going to learn a ton. So like for me in the last year, learning how to write certain ways. I just have to be able to expand more on what it is that I'm writing, because a lot of the things we did in the military is just like, you know, an executive summary, so to speak. Yeah. Whereas some people, like for me, I'm okay with a gun, and these people with a pen is remarkable what they can do.
And they say pen is mightier than the sword.
It totally is, 100%.
Yep.
That's a fact.
It's what gets things done.
Yeah. So like in closing, for me, it's education, relationships, and emotional intelligence is what is getting me like a huge fucking high five in life right now. And that I'm really digging. So, you know, to the guys that are still in plugging away, you know, I was kicked off my horse by a government agency. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be as happy as I am today doing the things that I'm doing and growing in.
So sometimes a loss is a win kind of thing?
Yeah, 100%. Like one of the things I refocused on was risk, right? So we all kind of calculate the risks that we take. And sometime with great risks comes great reward. And that's where these stories come from, right? Yeah. But also sometimes that reward is just like a fucking huge failure, right? So like if you look at Amazon in business, they're going to take risks that are Amazon in size in billions and billions of dollars. And if it doesn't work, then it's a huge fall on the face, right? Yeah. But if it works, which it usually does, because these are smart cookies that are there, you know, what it means for shareholders and their stocks, I mean, it just goes through the roof. So it's the same thing with human beings. You take a risk on your wife, your occupation, stuff like that. And if you come out with like great experiences, fantastic. But there's going to be a few of them in there. Yeah,
that's going to be like the wife you thought was great has made off with the contents of your bank account and house.
Yes, and the ice cube trays in the fridge.
Yeah?
Yeah. So
that's kind of a dick move.
Oh, yeah. Like, or trying to tell the lawyers that, like, your Veterans Affairs cash, you, like, gifted it to her. It's like, okay, you're going to have to prove that one. Savage. But anyways, nice try.
Yeah. Well, great having you with us.
Yeah, likewise, Steve. Thank you so much for having me here. This was fantastic.
Well, thanks for coming out. And feel free. You got something else you want to talk about? Come on down again.
I will. Thanks again for your time.
Bring a friend, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care.
All right. So that's it for Raucous Baucus, folks. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And what the hell? We got some music in here somewhere.
Nice.
There we go. Yeah. Well,
I wish my airplanes had this as they were coming in, about to set us down.
Oh, it'd be awesome, eh? Well, you should add it on
just
tape.
Like Vietnam, right?
Da-da-da-da-da.
You're about to die.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Who doesn't?
Anyway, thanks for tuning into this episode of Raucous Baucus, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Be nice to each other out there. There's no point being a dick because it's not going to get anything done. So cheers. And if you want to get a hold of me at all, it's Steve C. Kopang at gmail.com. So Steve, Sierra Tango, Echo, Victor Echo, Charlie, Kilo, Oscar, Papa, Alpha, November, Golf, at gmail.com. Send in your hate mails or suggestions, whatever you got. I'm more than happy to see them. Cheers.